In the middle of a normal residential building in Barking, East London, there were cameras everywhere people expected them to be. In hallways, near entrances, inside the elevator. Like most buildings, those cameras were there to record routine movement, not crime. And for a long time, what they recorded appeared unremarkable. When investigators first reviewed the footage, the timeline seemed straightforward. People entered the building. The elevator doors opened and closed. Timestamps marked each moment. Based on the information available then, nothing immediately suggested a crime. The deaths that followed were treated separately, each explained on its own terms. At that stage, the investigation relied on an assumption that's common in modern policing, that video footage, especially with a visible clock, is a reliable anchor for time. The camera shows what happened. The timestamp shows when it happened. Together, they feel definitive. But as more information came in, that confidence began to weaken. When later deaths occurred, investigators started to compare records across cases. CCTV footage was placed alongside phone data, witness accounts, and emergency call logs. On paper, everything should have lined up. Instead, small inconsistencies began to appear. Not dramatic ones, just seconds here, a minute there. Movements that overlapped when they shouldn't have. On their own, each discrepancy could be dismissed. Cameras are imperfect. People misremember. Systems lag. At the time, none of this was treated as decisive. But when analysts stepped back and looked at the timeline as a whole, the pattern became harder to ignore. This is the point where the investigation shifted, not because of a confession, not because of a new witness, but because the existing evidence was re-examined more carefully. CCTV systems don't all keep time the same way. Internal clocks can drift. Some systems aren't regularly synchronized. If investigators assume every timestamp is accurate without verification, small errors can quietly distort an entire sequence of events. That possibility became central to the review. Digital forensic specialists began reconstructing the timeline using what are known as anchor events, phone connections, verified calls, moments that could be independently dated. When those anchors were used to correct and align the video footage, the story the cameras appeared to tell began to change. Movements that once seemed ordinary now occurred in a different order. Gaps appeared where there had been none, and explanations that had once fit no longer held up. In the evidence room, this is the moment that matters, when the timeline stops confirming the story and starts questioning it. As the corrected sequence emerged, attention focused on one individual, Stephen Port. His account of events depended heavily on the original version of the timeline. Once that timeline was adjusted, key parts of his explanation became chronologically impossible. What followed moved into the courtroom, where the standards shifted from what appeared to have happened to what could be proven. Port was convicted in 2016 of 4 murders and sentenced to life imprisonment with a whole life order. That outcome is confirmed in court records. But the case did not end there. Years later, fresh inquests examined how the deaths had been investigated. The jury concluded that all 4 men had been unlawfully killed and that police failures probably contributed to the deaths of the last 3. Oversight bodies reopened investigations into how evidence had been handled and whether earlier opportunities had been missed. Some of those accountability processes have continued into recent years. It's important to be precise here. Not every detail about the role of specific CCTV systems, including elevator cameras, is publicly documented in full technical terms. Where exact mechanisms are not confirmed in court or inquest records, they remain unconfirmed and should be treated cautiously. What is confirmed is this: assumptions about timelines delayed understanding, and correcting those assumptions changed the direction of the case. Today, the legal outcome is clear. The broader questions are about process, about how evidence is interpreted, and about how easily technology can appear authoritative even when it isn't. This case is not a story about a single camera or a single mistake. It's about how truth often emerges quietly through careful rechecking rather than dramatic revelation. The camera didn't lie, but the time it showed wasn't the whole truth. And in cases like this, that distinction matters.